Board of Education of the Kaneland Community Unit School District 302. I'd like to inform everyone that the board meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. And we'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Barber.
Here.
Mrs. Junk.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mr. Lawler.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Here.
Mr. Rivas.
Present.
Mrs. Witt.
Here. All right, so with 7 members present, there is a quorum. Would any board member like to move something from consent to new business? See none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And so we'll move on to superintendent salutes.
Thank you, President Sparber. If you either watched or were here at our last board meeting, the board accepted on behalf of our parent organizations over $125,000 in donations from the last school year. And so what we shared was that we would take some time tonight to recognize our parent organizations and any representatives that could make it tonight. So first of all, thank you again for over $125,000 that were raised and donated over the last school year and donated to our students. So round of applause for all of our parent organizations. And so what I'll do now is I'll just share each of our parent organizations, and if there is a representative from that organization, if you'd please come up and just share your name and maybe your role within that organization, if you would. You probably didn't, I don't know if anybody told you you'd be doing that tonight, but good luck with that. Our first one is the Kaneland Special Needs PTA. Is there a representative? Yay. Rats, come on down. Thank you. Please just share your name and your role within the organization, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Kathy Hoyda. My kids are done with the school, but I am teaching the current parents what they have to look forward to when they get out of special ed and into the adult world. And I thought other people would come, so boy, last minute decision, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is our Kaneland Sports Boosters.
My name is Robin Redman, and my husband and I are co-president of the Kaneland Sports Boosters.
Thank you. Kaneland Performing Arts Boosters.
Oh, come on.
Anybody like to pretend you're part of the... On behalf of the Kaneland Performing Arts Boosters, thank you for all of your work and your donations to the district. Kaneland John Stewart, PTN. Going once. Again, thank you for all of your work on behalf of the John Stewart PTN. John Shields PTO.
So my name is Estella Bosque. I'm with John Shields, co-president for the PTO. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work. The McDowell PTO. All right, thank you, McDowell. And our last PTO is Blackberry Creek.
Yay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
My name is Julie Keene, and I'm the president of Blackberry Creek PTO. And thank you for everybody that supports us.
Yep, thank you. And again, thank you on behalf of our board. Thank you to all of our groups and parents for all of your work. Again, those are all volunteer positions and raised on behalf of our community. I did forget one, and I don't have a certificate, but here at Harder Middle School, the Harder PTO. Someone else going to come up with you? You're trying to talk. Come on up, Emma. Please, come on up.
I was trying to pass it all over. I'm graduating.
I'm Kathy Carey. I'm the co-president of the Harder PTO.
And I'm Emma Ebert, and graduating soon, so I've handed it over.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure we get their certificate over their building, because I know a lot of the buildings display this with great pride in their building, so thank you very much. And again, last round of applause for our organizations. Next, I'll ask Mrs. Maris, our high school principal, to come up. She's going to share a salute on behalf of her building.
Thank you. I just want to publicly thank the community and everybody who helped out with the ABC 7 Friday flyover. We were nominated. The only reason why we got to even do it was because people in our community reached out to ABC 7 and let them know how proud they were to be a Kanelandite. And we don't even know who all did that, but I, from the bottom of my heart, thank everybody who was involved in that. I also want to thank both the performing arts and the sports boosters, because you guys didn't even blink an eye when we said, we're going to do another event during homecoming week. Can you help come out at 4 o'clock in the morning? And just very gracious of all of your time, and I appreciate that. The other group I think that you guys all need to know about is our marching band and Mr. Aaron Puckett, because they have enough shows to do as it is. And literally we said, sure, ABC, come on, we'll do this, not knowing what we were saying yes to. And Aaron Puckett created 3 amazing designs for us, and then got all of his, well, not all of them, but a good chunk of his marching band to go out on Thursday morning and other times to practice and make sure that the rest of us knew what to do when we got there, and made us look really good. So we will be sending out some more information at the end of October when the voting comes, so that we can all get on and let everybody know that we're all proud to be Knights. But thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Maris. That is all I have.
All right, so any other salutes? No? All right, so now we will move on to public comment. There are 2 opportunities for public comment now and at the end of the meeting. The board values public input to inform our decision-making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education, and we're required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. For that reason, the board does not enter into debate or respond to questions spontaneously or without proper investigation and deliberation. In most cases, concerns or questions requiring follow-up will be referred to the superintendent. If you choose to speak publicly, we ask that you stand, state your name and village of residence or your association with us for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have that opportunity. You are encouraged to seek a private appointment to discuss matters concerning individual students or staff members. While public education can be an emotional issue, and understandably so, the board strives to maintain a certain level of decorum at the meeting. Those who speak are expected to maintain a tone of courtesy and civility. The floor is now open for public comment. Any public comment? Nope. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Tonight, the consent agenda contains the following action items: the approval of the Treasurer's Report, September 2018, approval of minutes of the September 24th, 2018 regular meeting, approval of resignation and employment of staff, approval of destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from March 2017, approval of 2019-20 budget calendar, approval of the e-elevation resource purchase, and the following informational items: the student suspension data report, the enrollment report September 30th, 2018, the Freedom of Information Act FOIA report, and the field trip notification report. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. And now we'll move on to J1, Board of Education Art Purchase Awards.
Thank you.
Behind me, you'll see some wonderful art, 12 pieces of art from students from around our district. And it's Kaneland is known for art. We are well thought of in our district, in the community, in the Kane County, and all of Northern Illinois with our arts from K all the way up through high school. And so tonight, we do have a chance to celebrate a number of students. And just so that you know, this artwork is displayed here tonight after students have won their awards, and then it goes over to the district office for 2 years. So for 1 year, we have it in the hallway leading into the district office, and then for a year in the superintendent's office. So you'll see it displayed here tonight, and then for 2 years, it's in the district office. Then after that, it goes back into the buildings of origin. So we have 2 years to be able to see this in our district office, which is great. So those of you who've ever been into my office, you'll see it's all scattered around wonderfully. So what we'll do tonight is we have our art teachers here. I'll call up each of the art teachers. They will then call up the students, second place and then first place, recognize our students. And then when we are done, we would ask that all the students and their families go in the hallway and we can get a group picture. And then we can continue to celebrate our artists in the KCN. So we'll continue to see that and celebrate our students moving forward. So with no further ado, we'll start with John Stewart. So Mrs. Gray. And parents, please feel free to come up and take pictures. So as your kids say, Mom, Dad, don't, we give you permission. Come up and take pictures, take as many as you want, send them to grandma, neighbors, whoever. You have permission to come up, and if they're mad, they can be mad at me.
All right. This is Milena. She is now a first grader. I was her art teacher last year.
This is her art.
Right. I was gonna.
Yep.
Can I take that?
Sure can.
Here it is. Milena was an amazing art student. We worked on this for weeks. We were studying the color wheel, so we really dived into color theory. And so what we focused on with this, we did it around Christmas time. Instead of doing the traditional Christmas trees, we worked with either warm or cool colors. And so she chose more of the warm colors. We do have a few cool colors in there. And then they painted the sky with watercolor and then did the little dots for the snow. And then we had to pizzazz it up with a little bit of that glitter, too. So great job, Milena. My next one is Grace. Is Grace here? No. No. Okay.
I'll make sure she gets it.
Okay. We did this in 4th grade. We did a radial design, so working around, also understanding what symmetrical is and trying to keep it the same on all sides. We did it with paper, so it's a relief sculpture. And so we manipulated paper in different ways. And so whatever they did on one side, they had to do to the other side. So that's what we did. That's cool.
Talk about pressure. Wow. Mrs. Berth from Blackberry Creek.
This one?
Oh.
Just look to one place. All right. How about you hold this, Bella, and I'll hold the artwork. Is that all right? Okay. This is Bella, and Bella created this piece when she was in 2nd grade at Blackberry Creek. We were focusing on several key concepts, learning the idea of symmetry. So what was on one side was also done on the other side. This is a feather that started off as a small little sketch, and we talked about how to enlarge things and enlarge them properly and proportionally. And so her little sketch then she enlarged to this really big leaf that was filled in with tempera, and then eventually we layered a little bit of oil pastel on it to kind of create the texture and just that other added kind of layer that's a little bit more interesting to look at. So congratulations, Bella. Jack, if you could come up. So this is Jack's piece. This was quite a few weeks in process, actually. One of the main concepts we kind of wanted to hit on this one, literally and then visually, is the idea of space and how to use the space and make a balanced composition, and then also including a point of emphasis. And so it kind of draws your eye to different areas of the picture. We incorporated printmaking with this one. The rockets are multiple prints that were modified after printing one color. Some of them have a 2-color print on them. Also kind of hidden and tucked in here, we talked about geometric forms and creating 3-dimensional forms. And so those are included on here as well. And then we have the added value and kind of the shading scale on one of the planets that he included in his piece as well. So multiple kind of dynamics of how space works visually and literally. Congratulations.
Mrs. Kagowski first. And then Mrs. Gilkey.
Okay, so this is Dylan Kajeski, and he made this project in 2nd grade. I'm detecting a little bit of a theme here because we also studied radial symmetry. And he started out with a starburst, which is starting with colors in the center and then working your way out. He did it in the color wheel order, which always looks great. And that's done with oil pastel. And then the second week, he made a little styrofoam printing plate and rotated as he printed printmaking on top of it with his design. And I just have to say that he's a very, very hardworking artist, and I'm super proud of him. And I always look forward to everything he does in art because it's always awesome. So congratulations to you.
So this is Lanie Brewer, and she received a first place for last year's board art purchase. And Lanie is in 5th grade now, but she did this project in 4th grade. And in 4th grade, we studied value of color. And at the beginning of the year, when I always ask the kids about value in the art class, you get different ideas. They say money, or like math. And then they learn throughout the year that the value of the color changes when you add tints and shades, right? When you make them into tints and shades, you add white to make it a tint, you add black to make it a color. Well, at the beginning of the year, this was the very first project that we did. Lanie did a fantastic job with her tints and shades, especially in her background. I was super impressed by this because we hadn't really studied it a whole lot because this was the very first thing that we did this year. And I just thought that her owl, we were studying, what are they called, the white owl, the snowy owl, I think it's called. And she chose to bring the pinks and the purples in and then decided that she wanted to continue with that, which went along with what we would be studying that year anyway, so it was fantastic. I felt like she was a step ahead of everything that I was doing. She was fantastic in 4th grade, and I'm sure she's carrying that on with Ms. Zagowski in 5th grade at McDowell. And I look forward to seeing her artwork in Harder Middle School. Congratulations, Lanie.
don't know if you noticed, there's a crack in that corner. We'll get that one fixed before we put it up in the district office. We start with them in the district office. That's where we collect them, and then we bring them over here to display. And I think that was cracked because a number of the ladies in the district office were fighting over it because where we position it outside their offices, they get to see it. So I'm sure that's what happened with that one. Our next one, Mrs. Grigg.
Ava grew a lot this last year, so she can hold her project. She's actually in 6th grade this year, so I don't have the pleasure of seeing her every week in school, but she's almost got me beat. So, yeah, so she made this last year in 5th grade. It is a dragon eye. So in 5th grade, we were focusing on not just drawing the entire objects, in this case a dragon, but really focusing in on one small part of it, and in this case an eye. And she did a really awesome job also incorporating texture and really getting that scaly skin that we would see on a lizard, or we imagine we would see on a dragon. And her use of watercolor and blending colors and just the real control in the materials, you really start to see that, especially in the older grades in 5th grade. And she really did just an amazing job. And then just the colors are just beautiful. So I miss her this year, but I'm sure she's going to do some amazing things in middle school. So congratulations, Ava.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and then Parker. Yes.
Is he going to hold it?
No, he can hold that. I'll hold the big one for him. So this is Parker, and this is his artwork that's almost as big as he is. And he created this in kindergarten. So as you can imagine, this is a pretty amazing piece for a 5- or 6-year-old to complete. Because not only did he have to actually create smaller pieces of art within this, but there are so many layers to this. So we first started learning about texture and what texture is, and then they had to create a texture with crayon in every single box, a different one. And then over that, they had to control the watercolor paint. You see what a 5th grader can do controlling watercolors. This is what a kindergarten can do. And it's pretty amazing. And then on top of it, I'm sure his classroom teacher was very excited to see that we were incorporating some writing in our artwork. And for a kindergartner to write the alphabet in paint, we did not pre-write it in pencil, and he did not make a single error in that, is pretty amazing work. So I was super proud of him. There was no doubt in my mind that this is the one I was going to pick for the Board Art Purchase Award. So congratulations, Parker.
Mrs. Farr?
I'll do second. So, McKenna, come on up. Give that to her.
Yes.
So this is McKenna Larson, and this is her artwork. Can I read the poem? Yeah. There are things I said I would never do. There are fears that I cannot believe come true. It goes here next, right? Yeah. And myself have grown, no, it goes, for my soul is too sick, too little, and too late, and myself I have grown too weary to hate. Ooh, nice. So she's a poet, she's an artist. Okay, is it? Okay. And I actually commissioned this because I saw her do this in a lined notebook, which is her preferred media, actually. She likes to work on lined paper for some odd reason. And I said, well, I would love this for the Board Purchase Award, but we got to do it in paint, we got to use, full on, do it on actual paper. So I commissioned this piece for the Board Purchase Award. McKenna is absolutely amazing at strategically working on multiple projects at the same time with multiple things going on in those projects. Project management,
hire her for that because she can have multiple things going at the same time and keep them up in the air, and I don't know how she does it. And in her spare time, she does special effects makeup. And she has an Instagram account, apparently, and she's shown me some of the pictures that are just full-on gore, amazing, amazing stuff. And so she's got this like incredible depth to her work that that I've been able to see in art class and also when I was doing art after school. So you're just an amazing artist, and I'm glad you guys got to meet her because she's just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now this doesn't present super well back there because it's all line drawing, and it's got a poem on it, and it's got the poem in Japanese and her name in Japanese. So with this project, I introduced my students to traditional Japanese printmaking, and then from there we did a line drawing. Then what she did was she incorporated her own knowledge of Japanese folklore and created this figure, which is a woman's head on this giant...
Rokurokubi.
There you go.
I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, she's also into drama and voice and writing, and so... so she incorporated her own knowledge of that into this assignment. She also has been teaching herself Japanese, and we shared this absolute fascination with Japanese culture. My mom traveled there, and so I have sort of family over there. And so we just kind of buzzed off of that, and the whole class was like high-level thinkers. So they followed Delilah and my lead. Delilah actually became my teaching assistant and helped the kids write their names in Japanese correctly, because there are 3 different alphabets in Japanese.
Hiragana, katakana, and kanji.
And so she helped clarify all that, and she also taught me how to pronounce Japanese, which is, you put the same emphasis on every syllable, right?
Yes, there isn't really any stressing.
There's no stressing. So she taught me a whole lot. So I had a teaching assistant. She got this project and kind of re-energized in your Japanese thinking, and all around amazing, amazing student who's going to just go really far in life, really far. So congratulations, Delilah.
Wow, congratulations. From the high school, Ms. Vandelinder.
Hallie Kenson, come
Yes.
on up here. All right. I like to pick one project that usually takes like a class hour. So Hallie, come on up. But is a really good example of a snapshot of what we do in the classroom. So this is hers here, and it's a smaller piece, but and it's very subtle. It's done in oil pastel. There's maybe a little bit of charcoal in there, and some acrylic in the background. But we were working with, working from life. So she has this image here that she's actually sitting on the table. We put light on it. What really works well here, it's a really nice example, small example, but of really careful observation. There's a subtle sort of color palette where she's working with mostly grays, but still getting the shadow on the table correct. So it just shows a little bit more skill and more care to her work, and a lot of her work is very talented. She went to a conference with us. She's in a photography class. She got we do the ROE. There's a photo contest in the area for the regional. You got first place in that. So I've been trying to get you in AP art next year, but guilting a little bit. But this is just a good example of a nice composition with negative space. We were experimenting with new media, and it's just something that can be done within a class period that still really shows kind of what we're all about. So this is our still life unit here. So congratulations. She's a junior this year. She's a sophomore when she did this one. And then my first place is actually, she's at college because she was a senior last year. Okay. But she will love that for art supplies.
Yes, she will.
So
Okay.
it's over here. I just got I get updates from her. She's at Champaign-Urbana now. This is an example of one that she spent many, many days on, and we look at really zooming in close and trying to get reflective surfaces. So we're looking at candy wrappers and pretty much garbage all day, but looking and trying to see those sort of elements and trying to get the color layering with watercolor. So this is a more focused time. Rihanna Helm, she is going to school for art, and she's got sculpture and painting and is loving everything. She was just said, I got a little message from her saying, we just have to start buying our painting supplies, and boy, art supplies are so expensive. I'm like, yes.
Perfect.
So she will appreciate this very much, and I always like getting updates from them. So I was there from the high school.
Thank you for coming. Our art teachers, would you stand for a second, please? Thank you for all of your hard work to lead our students to be able to perform this kind of art. So thank you very much. A round of applause for our staff. Thank you. And on behalf of our staff and students, I'd like to thank our board for continuing to support the Art Awards every year, continuing to support art programs. It's very important for our students, so thank you. And lastly, our students, the second place students, just wanted you to know, second place students each received a $25 gift card, and first place students each received a $50 gift card. So technically they've been paid for their work, so you have a professional artist on your hands. So congratulations to our professional artists. And if you would, students, Mr. Atkins is going to lead you right outside in the hallway. We'll make sure we get all of your pictures, and we will. You're going to give that back to me? I'm just kidding. That's yours. No, that. You keep that too. I'll take the gift card. No, just kidding you. No, again, just kidding. Again, congratulations. We're going to get a group picture out there, and we'll make sure we highlight our students in the next KCN. So again, thank you to all of our artists. Thanks parents for coming out tonight, and thank you to our teachers.
That's when I know you're my daughter.
Like, why don't you talk to my kids? Thank you. Thank you. See you later, Suzanne.
I tried to get another update because I don't know already in August, so like later August. So I was trying to get an update, but I think she might be too busy.
She's probably a little busy, but yeah, I'll be glad to send this to you.
These kids are so talented.
Oh, because they are here.
I love getting to pick what I put in the office.
Yeah.
It's a highlight.
Chair from somewhere out there. I stole yours and I was sitting on it. I'm like, I'm just giving that one. All right, so we'll move on to J2, which is the resolution for the bond refunding.
Yeah, if you recall from the last board meeting, Dr. Fuchs and Bob Lewis from
PMA.
PMA, I can remember. It was 5-Cast or PMA. Bob Lewis was here and gave an overview, and we have more information to share tonight and our resolution. So, Dr. Fuchs.
Great. There's no new additional information except for last week we had our rating call with Standards & Poor's, and today we got the results. Standards & Poor's held our AA rating, so we did not get downgraded or upgraded. We got held, and that's exactly what we would want, unless if they wanted to upgrade us. But I was very happy with being held with a AA rating. We've tentatively scheduled the bond auction for next week on the 18th. It'll happen at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I should have results for you sometime that day, if not for sure by Friday. And so that'll be really good. Remember that present value savings on this bond refunding is about $1.5 million. That's not to our operating dollars, but that's to our taxpayers. What that means is that when we refund our bonds, we'll have less bond indebtedness for the taxpayers to pay. That money comes right from the taxpayer to the district to the bond companies. It does not pass through our operating funds. It is different. It's our debt service accounts. With that being said, the resolution in the packet is the legalese that Chapman and Cutler, our bond attorneys, have prepared for us. And so, President Sparber, if you'll read the motion as is, that would be helpful.
Okay.
They also prepared that for us.
Yes, exactly. Any questions first? Or,
I do have a question. You know how, I'm going to probably use the wrong terms, but there are different kinds of auctions that you use when, do we know which way we're going?
Competitive?
Okay.
Yep. So we'll put it online and people will get to bid. And there's a specified time period. I believe it's 15 minutes. And if anybody bids within the last 2 minutes, the time period is then extended for 2 more minutes until everybody has an equal opportunity to bid. And then it'll go to the highest bidder.
Okay. Great.
Or the lowest, I guess, with interest. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, you bet. So it's a competitive bid online.
Okay.
Anything else?
And it's actually the lowest bidder because it's the lowest
Yeah.
interest rate.
The
Sorry
best,
about that.
I don't know, the best.
Yeah, exactly. Best bidder.
The
Yeah.
best is the lowest
I don't
in
know.
this case.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way to think of it. So, thank you. Good question.
All right, so if nothing else, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the attached resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed 23.5 million general obligation school refunding bonds for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement in connection therewith, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Aye.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, then a roll call.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
And Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. So
I'll
thank
keep the
you for
board,
your work.
yep, and I'll keep the board posted on the savings. So
Excellent.
it's exciting.
So we'll move on to Superintendent Report.
Yeah, last Thursday, two Thursdays ago, September 27th, we had our monthly CAC meeting. Mrs. Barber was our board liaison rep, so I didn't know if you wanted to provide a highlight, and I can always share a few highlights
Sure.
too.
I mean, a lot of it was demos. So people got to see the new food service program. So Mr. Wolf brought in like an iPad, I believe it is, that you could kind of act like you were checking people out at the lunch line, but people could see what that looks like, and you pulled up a lunch account and saw how you could utilize that for your students as well. So that was interesting. We talked about Canvas, the learning management system, a safety update and then a technology update as well, more technology safety as well. And I think all those were well received, and I think we just maybe a few more questions on the food service program, and that's kind of new. The other things were a little bit more of an update, but I thought it was very interesting. So.
And that was, those were topics that were generated last spring by CAC, so we were able to provide those speakers for that night. And then also October 25th is our next CAC, and we've done the same thing with that. Mrs. Eggleston was highly helpful in getting a speaker from Linden Oaks on mental health at our next CAC meeting, which will be October 25th at 7 o'clock in the library. So thank you to Mrs. Eggleston for that. Also last week, we had our first of the Taste of Kaneland Planning Committee meetings. If you'll recall, next year is the last year of Kaneland 2020, so one of our goals is to have a culminating event, and it's going to be called Taste of Kaneland, and Mrs. Eggleston is on the committee, Dr. Fuchs, Mrs.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Rivas and Ms. Junk, and so if anybody from that committee wants to share any of our highlights or what we did last week.
Overall, I think we kind of went through what we wanted the event to look like, and then broke up into subgroups and started trying to make plans. Before our next meeting, we're trying to come back with a budget.
Right. And the goal is to have a community unification event because of the fact we are a unique district in that we bring together 9 or 10 different communities. So on that day, we want to be a unified, it's August 25th of next fall. We want to be a unifying event to bring together all of our communities on one campus, and we're still kind of creating what that's going to look like, and that's kind of what the committee's doing based on the budget that we can have and the fundraising, and then that's, we'll keep you updated on a monthly basis. Kaneland Foundation, so upcoming meetings now. Kaneland Foundation meets next Tuesday, October 16th. As you know, the grants have been awarded, and in November we'll have our grant recipients come. So this meeting is to review the golf outing, how we did as far as fundraising, and then to plan any other future fundraising events moving forward. And Mrs. Sparber will attend that meeting next Tuesday. Facilities Planning Committee meeting, October 24th. And I know Mr. Rivas is attending that meeting. You're on for that one. The Facilities Planning Committee over the years has had a great deal of planning new buildings, expansions, building improvements, but with a couple years of budget reductions and fewer of those type of larger scope projects taking place, the committee has not been as active. We still meet, we just don't have as much to discuss, but they'll be meeting on the 24th. Then also on October 25th, we have our IASB division meeting, our Kishwaukee division meeting, and that is in up in West Dundee, and both Mrs. Witt and President Sparber will be attending that meeting, and on that night, both of them will be recognized for their master board member work, and that recognition comes from attending III and the hours of dedication that comes with attending different workshops and committees, and a lot of that is through the III, so congratulations to former President Witt and President Sparber, and we'll bring back and show off our certificates that they earn. Updated information, the 5 Essentials Survey, every other year. Traditionally, we've given the 5 Essentials Survey, but now as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, is now required to be conducted annually. We're trying to get the final information from the University of Chicago and ISBE and send that information out to our parents, students, and staff for that survey. We do have set aside time for staff to take it in November, and also our students. So we have that participation rate is usually easily attained, but the 80% of the parent participation has been a challenge for our district and most districts to get our parents to take those surveys. So we will continue to send that information. We'll send reminders. We'll send the link out, and I believe even at conferences coming up at the end of October, we'll set up a couple laptops as parents come into the buildings. We'll try to corral them and not let them pass the laptops until they go and take the survey first. So you'll see that information coming out. Additionally, next week on the 17th and 18th, as we talked about personalized learning, Kaneland is hosting about 25 professionals from Northern Illinois over at the Meredith campus in conjunction with the Institute for Personalized Learning out of Milwaukee. So this, as we talk about Kaneland 2020 personalized learning, this is one of the few times, if not the first time, that the Institute for Personalized Learning in Milwaukee up in Wisconsin has come this direction and brought their speakers out of state. Normally everybody has to trek up to Milwaukee. So this is a great opportunity for our staff and for the Northern Illinois and the area, and we hope that after this one, subsequent meetings will continue and workshops will continue to build as personalized learning grows and expands, not only in Kaneland but around Northern Illinois. Next board meeting on Monday the 29th. It's always a nice event. We have all of our principals attend, and we have our school improvement plan presentations, so you'll see those coming up on October 29th. And the last thing, but not the least, this Friday, we have our second annual CEO conference at the Fox Valley Career Center. If you recall, Dr. Burchell started this last year. Just a ton of work that goes into it. I think they brought on anywhere between 20 to 30 local community vendors, companies, some Wabansie reps, and also some other career professionals, and all of our Fox Valley career students had the opportunity to sign up just like you would a workshop and learn about 2 or 3 different professions, the inside information on that profession, because a number of our students at Fox Valley Career Center are already taking a class or a program they believe might be a profession that they might want to choose, but this also allows them the opportunity to see other careers and learn from practitioners in the field. And I do recall from last year, after the conference, one of the vendors, I can't remember which vendor, was so impressed with some of the students in their workshop, got the information from, got their information with their permission from Dr. Burchell and hired 2 of those students immediately thereafter. So not only did it have a long-term gain for a number of our students, but a short-term gain for employment almost immediately after the meeting. So that's a lot of what's going on in the district the next couple weeks, and if you have any questions, feel free, and I'll send more information out. So those are my updates.
We have an FAC meeting tomorrow night, and Meg is our representative. And so we'll meet in the district office up at the high school there from 7 to 8:30, and the agendas went out, so that should be good. And then a couple of you had questions today on the newsletter article that came out in several papers. I just wanted to provide clarification. So the information that came out today is the financial information from fiscal year or school year 2016-17. So last year when our auditors were here, they said that because of our deficit spending at that time, where our expenditures exceeded our revenues, it dropped our financial profile score and put us into the warning category. I am happy to let you know that I do have a draft of the AFR, the Annual Financial Report, for fiscal year 17-18. If you'll recall, we ended with revenues over expenditures because we've cut over $3 million of planned expenditures over the last 2 years. Because of that, our financial designation, I expect it to be back up to what's called the review category. And the review is one step above the warning. There's one more category above that, and that would be financial recognition. In order to get to financial recognition, we would have to have a larger fund balance and pay off some of our debt. That would be our long-term debt. I do have handouts for you if you're interested in them. Additionally, if you need more information to explain it, there's a nice handout on the ISB website, and I'd be glad to include that in the Friday update so that you can have a link. What you have here then is one side is the 2018 score. Again, the 2018 score represents data from 2016-17. On the other side is the estimate for the 2019 score, and that represents financial information from 2017-18. So you can take one of those and take a peek at it and let Dr. Layden know if you have any questions. We'll be happy to get information back to you.
When you said long-term debt, you're talking about the bonds.
That's correct.
Okay, so by refinancing the bonds, that should...
That helps a little. We still have quite a bit of debt just because we built so many new buildings. We have 10 more years. But the nice part of that is now that we're down to 10 years, every year we pay off a certain portion of the principal. And so that number should start to come up at some point. But if you look on the profile score sheet, each of the 5 criteria are weighted, and the long-term debt is only weighted at 0.1. So that one's not the important one. The important one is number 1, which is the fund balance to revenue ratio, and that is weighted at 0.35. And so on the right-hand side, that's the weight. Yep. So if we could turn that into a 4, we would be higher than what we are currently. But the only way to get that higher is to consistently have revenues over expenditures.
So grow the fund balance.
That's correct.
Isn't there we have a limit on how much we can put in that fund balance, right? Like how many?
No.
No? I'm thinking of something else then?
We have a fund balance policy that says we have to have a minimum of
Okay,
45
we can
days.
exceed that.
But there's no limit. I wouldn't recommend much beyond 90 days. 90 days is what it takes to get a good score on the profile, which is double what our policy is.
Right, okay.
When we set the fund balance policy, it took the Finance Advisory Committee a little over a year and a half to land on the 45 days. There was a lot of discussion. Some would have liked to had it 30, others would have liked to seen it at 90. The challenge or the balance is the majority of the money that we're collecting is from taxpayers, and taxpayers expect that the money that you collect, you use. It's okay to have some money in fund balance for the time periods when perhaps the state doesn't make a payment. That way you have enough money to pay payroll and you don't have to borrow short term, because that's very expensive. But then the balance to that is, well, how much do you really need to keep for that rainy day? And that's when the Finance Advisory Committee landed on 45 days, and then the board supported that through the policy.
So if I understand cell or number 2 correctly, that's just whether or not we're running a deficit or a surplus?
That's correct.
All right,
so you'll notice in 16-17, we had a deficit, but if you turn it over for 17-18, we had revenues over expenditures, therefore we got a 4.
Okay.
Yep.
So percentage of short-term borrowing maximum remaining, it says 0, so you don't have any short-term.
Correct, so that's why we got a 4 on that one.
Do we even have a line of credit or anything?
No.
We have we don't have the ability to do that.
We could go to a bank and do some if we had to, but we don't have to.
Well, no, I understand that. I just.
Yeah, we have the ability now
Okay.
to get short-term, but we haven't needed to. The short-term is if you get to April or May and you can't make payroll because you're out of cash, that's when you have to short-term borrow.
No, I understand that. I was just wondering if we had something set up, like a line of credit or so. Okay.
We've borrowed from ourselves. We've borrowed from next year's budget in tight times. We've borrowed from working cash, but we've never gone out and paid interest on it.
Okay.
That's the benefit of having something in fund balance, is to rely on that in times when you don't have enough money to pay your bills.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anything else from board members? Nope. Is that all for you?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
So any topics for future agendas? So we'll move on to public comments. This is the second opportunity for public comments. Any public comments? Nope. Okay, tonight we have an executive session. We'll be going into executive session for collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, as well as security procedures, school building safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property, and the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including herein testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. We do not expect any action after executive session tonight, so therefore the recording will stop at the end of this regular meeting. And is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a roll call?
Mrs. Pavlak?
Aye.
Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber?
Aye.
Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Mrs. Junk?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Mr. Lawler?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. It is 7.